what is the most important aspects of the U.S. military intervention in Libya that people should know about?
Yeah, so I guess start off with they lied us into this war too. Very important point. There's a couple of ways this happened. The first is that they claimed that Gaddafi was essentially going to carry out a genocide in eastern Libya. That after, so the Arab Spring happens in neighboring Tunisia. Uprising also happens in Libya. And a big part of the uprising in Libya is militants called the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, I believe.
And LIFG.
Okay, great. Cool. I almost mixed it up with Tigray, the Tigray People's Liberation Front. So, anyways, yeah. So, yeah, and these are basically the Al Qaeda guys in Libya, and some of them veterans from Iraq War II who fought against the Americans there and everything, right? And so they take some control of a couple cities, including Benghazi and everything like that. So Gaddafi puts his army together, and they go off and they start, taking back the territory from the jihadists. And so I think the Americans were saying things like Gaddafi was going to go in and kill every man, woman, and child, which he took that territory, and that didn't happen. Now, I mean, he's an African dictator, and it's war. Like, people die. It's not. I'm not trying to make excuses for it or anything like that, but at the same time, it's not like the Americans would say, we committed a genocide in Fallujah any of the times that we, cleared that place of militants. And so I think there's a lot of room between, what the Americans say happened, what actually happened, which was Gaddafi taking it back. Civilians died, of course, but they also claim things like the Americans were, the Gaddafi was giving his army Viagra so they could rape more. And, it's the old, level of babies on bayonets, level of stupid, evil war propaganda that they were carrying out. There's plenty of reason to believe that, the war didn't need to happen. Yeah, Gaddafi would have taken back from Benghazi from the militants. I'm sure civilians would have died in that, but I mean, Libya has been a nightmare after, and predictably so. A couple things from, I guess, before the U.S. starts bombing, there's debate around it in the United States. One of the reasons people are saying, don't do it, please, for the love of God, don't do it, is that, Libya is kind of a fictitious country. It's a massive state on the Mediterranean, but it stretches well into the desert there, and the aquifers are in the south, and it takes a kind of careful balancing maneuver to make Libya one somewhat stable country. There's a big divide between the east and the west, and this has absolutely been proven in the 10 years since Gaddafi has been removed from power, because there's still several governments. You can't even say two. There's several different governments and power factions and everything like that, including, one of the people that was supposed to run for president in the Libyan elections that were supposed to be last month and got canceled was this man, Saif al-Islam, who is the son of Muammar Gaddafi and was, I think, likely to be the successor should Gaddafi have remained in power. But he was even willing to essentially depose his father and essentially just take over the throne, his father's throne in Tripoli, and allow, that to be the situation and to just move on from Gaddafi and everything like that. And unfortunately, the U.S. decided that it was better to bomb Gaddafi out of power than to actually, try to allow Libya to have its own transition. Libya was supposed to be a very big win for the Obama Hawks, Hillary Clinton, Anne-Marie Slaughter, and I think Michelle Flournoy was on that one, Sam Power. All these people really want this war. Now, of course, it turned into the absolute humanitarian catastrophe that was predictable. And we also have information here from Hillary Clinton's emails. This from Sidney Blumenthal to Hillary Clinton, explaining that there was going to likely be genocides against the black population of Libya. It's a split country. There's a lot of Arabs there. The Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, obviously, that's Islamic. Those are Arabs. And so there's a village or a town called Tarega in Libya, 30,000 people. It's made up of Tuaregs, an ethnic minority that Gaddafi imported into Libya to, migrant work and work in his security forces and everything like that. No longer exists. They're all either dead or chased off to Mali, where another war broke out because of this war, which we probably won't have time to talk about today, but is very significant. But anyways, yeah. So there is, I guess, really no state in Libya without Muammar Gaddafi, right? And that's absolutely been proven true. And we're warning about genocide, and that actually not like full genocide of the Libyan population, but of some targeted ethnic minorities in Libya. Yeah, they were absolutely completely removed from the country because of the U.S. intervention. So, yeah, well, I don't know if you got anything else on Libya you want to ask.
No, I just wanted people to know that the Viagra story was actually mentioned by Wolf Blitzer on CNN. I mean, the fake news that they're so terrified Alex Jones might be telling people someday in the future that could rile up someone crazy, they explicitly go forward with. Just unapologetically, no one gets fired, no one gets their accounts removed. It's it's just so brazen and in your face. When it comes to
You know what? Let's just stay on that real quick. So as predictable, the humanitarian consequences in Libya were absolutely awful. But one of the things that happened was slave markets and chattel slavery, like selling people at markets to go do forced labor, in Libya. And it's just absolutely crazy, right? All these people, again, who warn of false news and the rise of Trump and everything like that. It was their fake news that led to the rise of slave markets in Libya. And, this is like the greatest wet dream of any Klansman that, could possibly exist. If Trump really was the grand wizard and he could reinstall the selling of black people in a country, but it was Obama and CNN that did it. Right? Like the disconnect there between what actually happens and what they claim they're worried about is absolutely unbelievable. They create almost all the crisis they're constantly worried about. And just to talk on this point a little bit more. So you've had, I don't know if it's actually 1 million, but hundreds of thousands of people die in the past 10 years attempting to cross from Libya into Europe, right? And so you have the Democrats in the United States who are constantly crying about immigration and how cruel the Republicans are because they won't let people in and all this, right? And yet they just let hundreds of thousands of people drown in the Mediterranean Sea because of their own war in Libya. And so I don't know if anybody was actually predicting that there would be slave markets in Libya after Obama's war there, but people were predicting that there would be a major refugee crisis. And as Ramsey Baroud points out, he's a writer and we reprint his work at antiwar.com. He has one of the best articles I have read in 2021 was Ramsey's. And he points out that Afghans drowning throughout the entire Obama administration, trying to cross from Libya into Europe. None of them care. None of them, the poor Afghans, we have to save their, nothing. You know why? Because they were fleeing from the Taliban. And so, they were fleeing from the American war, not from the Taliban. And so if they end up in the West, there's no political benefit for the warmongers to have them there. But if you have Afghans who are fleeing the Taliban, well then, those are people who, if there's a new government in Afghanistan, yeah, they could go back to their home. And so U.S. intervention, this is the small sliver of Afghans who the U.S. intervention benefits are the ones that we want in the United States. That way they could be a community that advocates for war. But the actual refugees who spent 20 years fleeing America's wars have died all over the world. They've drowned in the English Channel. They drowned in the Mediterranean Sea. They drowned off the coast of Morocco trying to make it into Spain. And nobody has said a goddamn word about them because if they made it into the West, they wouldn't convey the political message that the warmongers want. And it really pisses